Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Tom Kelly. This is Clean Cut Audio, and this week we're going to be going over a pre-flight checklist so that you never botch another recording again. All right, let's do it! For those of you so patiently waiting on my production series, I promise you part 2 is coming out. It just turned out to be a bear of a project. Everything is out of sync. I've already spent hours and hours and hours on it. It's not ready yet. It's coming out soon. I promise. I'm really looking forward to part 2. But this week, we're doing something possibly more important. You can only get a good recording if you get a good one at the source. And a lot of times when people don't have a pre-flight checklist, the recording never happens because they weren't cautious of all the things they need to have in place before they can even hit record. So we're going over that today. It's going to be a big one. One of the most common things, and something that probably happens to everyone at least once, is you recorded through the wrong microphone. You set up the mic, you got it plugged in, you got your levels set, but you still accidentally recorded through your laptop mic. And that's telling me two things. Most of these are telling me two things. One, you don't have headphones in to monitor your own audio. And two, you're not recording tests to make sure that everything is sounding good. All of this stuff is human error. It's all stuff that happened because we don't have a system in place to make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen. But here's how you can check a few different ways which microphone you are recording on. The first one is make sure that you make some noise through the microphone and you hear the proper thing coming out of it. A lot of people are tempted to just like, hey, check, 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 or they'll hit it. First of all, don't hit your microphone. But the reason why doing the check, check, check isn't really great is because your laptop microphone or your earbud microphones, whatever, they're not that far away from your mouth. So when you say check, it can still get picked up by both sources and show you a signal that you can misinterpret as the signal coming from your microphone. So here's what I do. You want to lightly scratch the grill of your microphone. So I can hear that through my headphones. I'm sure you can hear it on your end too. Why that is more effective than yelling check, check is because this light scratch can be heard by the proper microphone, but it is so quiet from a distance, it won't be heard by the improper input. So what that means is if you're accidentally recording on your laptop mic, it's not going to pick up that scratch. You can easily tell I'm not recording through my SM7B because the scratch is not being detected. We can also look on our inputs. So whether you're on a Mac or a PC in your sound settings, you can check your default input and output device. If you're not setting up and tearing down your equipment every week, it should stay the same. A lot of people make the mistake when they've unplug something, they move to a different location, they expect all their settings to remain the same, but they don't. So we need to be checking in our sound devices here. So on Mac, I've got my Ensemble, which is my interface that my SM7B is plugged into. In Pro Tools, in Setup on Playback Engine, it is also set to Ensemble. So I know that it is picking up my Ensemble, which is my SM7B. Perfect. We can also see the meters here. So I've got all of these things telling me this is the right signal. And the last thing we can do is record a sample, right? So we can see the numbers are moving. It shows that it's recording. We can see the wavelength showing up. And we can listen back and hear that it's a good signal. I can't believe that more people don't do this in the recording. Anytime I hit record, I always record something, listen back to make sure that it's the right thing, and then I start the episode. I never want to go into this not being 100% sure that the right input is not being picked up, because after recording an hour and getting your laptop mic quality from 2 feet away, you don't want to redo that episode, but you don't want to not put that episode out. So there's no better way to check than to physically record a test and listen to it. The second thing is run through all of this with your guest or your co-host. You can have them, whether you're on Zoom or Squadcast, or they're recording themselves locally, or it's Skype. You need to learn all of these different systems so that you can walk your guest through and say, okay, Are you on Mac or PC? Okay, Mac, I need you to go to your sound preferences in system preferences. Tell me the readout of the input in the output device. Okay, now in Zoom, click this drop-down box. Tell me what you see. So we don't want to assume anything. We don't want to lose an episode or have one be bad quality. So we need to learn, if you're recording on Squadcast, learn the user interface so that you can verbally relay it to your guest. Or even better yet, I've seen people send their guest a PDF of a pre-flight checklist. Mute your phone, turn notifications off on your computer, double check these places. If Mac, do this. If PC, do this. It needs to be super clear because most of these issues are, all of them actually are human error, and it's a breakdown in miscommunication. So we need to clearly communicate all the things we need to be doing to get this right. I've also seen a lot of people say they forgot to hit record. How do you forget to hit record? I don't even really understand that. I mean, while you're recording, take a look at your screen. Does it say recording? If it does, you're good to go. If it's not recording, there's a problem. So I don't even know. I mean, just hit record, right? And with all of this, we need to have this printed out or in an app, because I've been doing this for 11 years and still there's sometimes I forget something in my workflow or my checklist. But we think we can store a lot more in our minds than we actually can. And we don't want to be putting that stress on our brain when you can just put it on paper, either a sheet of paper where you physically check things off, or there's a billion free to do apps for iPhone and Android, all of that stuff. Have your pre-flight checklist written out so you're not trying to remember this stuff. That's probably the most important takeaway from all of this. Don't try to remember, write something out, have something to look at, have something to physically check off to make sure I did this, I did this, I did this. The next thing is we don't have redundancy. One of my favorite phrases is 2 is 1 and 1 is none. What this means is at some point, our tech will fail. And if we don't have redundancy, if we don't have a backup, we're doomed. I mean, that's like if a bolt falls out on an airplane or a spaceship, the whole thing isn't dependent on that one bolt, that one point of failure. There are 3 or 4 to make sure that that one breakage doesn't kill everyone on board. We need to be doing this in our podcast as well. And this is something I haven't been good at because I've never really had issues, but I ran into some recently where Pro Tools was crashing because of another app I had installed. For some reason, iLok and Pro Tools didn't play well together, but it encouraged me to really take a look at how I can be recording 2 signals at once. Because if I'm 58 minutes into a 60-minute episode and Pro Tools crashes, it's not saving while it's recording. That whole episode is gone. So if you've seen my video on how to record a local signal rather than using Zoom on Mac, I know there's alternatives for a PC. I'm sorry, I don't know them by heart. But on Mac, if we look up QuickTime Player, which comes installed on every Mac computer, we can see on File, New Audio Recording. Again, we don't just want to hit record. We want to make sure, okay, it's going through the ensemble. Now I can hit record on QuickTime, give a couple claps for a sync point, and now I'm recording 2 signals at once. Well, I would be if I were recording in Pro Tools. So then if Pro Tools crashes, no worries. QuickTime has got its back. Some people with Mix Pre 3s or any portable recorders that have the ability to record on board via SD and pass through as an interface, you should be recording and simultaneously passing it through so that you have a backup. If your computer crashes, your recorder still has the recording. I mentioned it just a minute ago, but if we are on a Mac, we can click our notification center, go over to notifications and scroll up, and I can turn on do not disturb mode. And that makes sure that no system audio is going to ring or ding. Any sane person, I think, would have those sounds turned off anyway, but especially for your guests where you're recording Zoom, it will pick up system audio. So you want to tell your guest, make sure your notifications are off. Also remind them afterwards to turn them back on if they would like them to be on by default. It's just coming up with your system, coming up with all the points of failure, everything you have to do in order to have a successful recording, putting it down on paper, putting it into an app, and going through it before every episode. To say that I recorded through the wrong microphone, part of me gets it, but also, how are you not monitoring your own audio? I can hear my own voice in my headphones to let me know this is the recording through my SM7B. You need to be monitoring audio, double checking, physically seeing my computer is picking up this sound. Give that little scratch, make it soft enough so that no other devices will pick it up other than the device you expect to be picking it up. If it's not picking it up, you have the wrong device selected. Work through with your guests all the things that they need to be doing to have a successful recording. And then you can go through your entire recording focused on the conversations rather than worrying, is something going to fail? You know it's not going to because you've done the work ahead of time. Now you can relax and enjoy your podcast. How beautiful is that? I want to thank my co-executive producers for helping me make this video. These are my Patreon members on the co-executive producer tier. They are Ed Sullivan, Francis Parent Villaquets, and Gilbert Tang. Thank you all so much. If you would like to join the list and be shouted out in the videos and on the podcast, go to patreon.com/cleancutaudio. If you have not heard the podcast yet, cleancutaudio.com/podcast, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you ring the bell so that you don't miss an episode. New videos coming out every Tuesday, new podcasts coming out every Thursday. I am working through the production series where you get to just watch me edit a show, not in real time because it was like 2 hours, but I'm toying with the idea of in the Patreon putting the full unedited video in there. Be really exciting. We're also doing AMAs and all kinds of other stuff in the Patreon. So check that out. If you haven't seen the shop yet, cleancutaudio.com/shop. Got a couple of really fun t-shirts in there. And hit me up on Twitter if you're not on Patreon, @cleancutaudio. Let's talk about the show, talk about things you're looking for help with, and let's go out there and produce better sounding podcasts and get them done more efficiently. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye.